Welcome to our weekly Governance Voice. This is a program that brings together governance experts and industry leaders to discuss various matters of leadership and governance. This morning, we are privileged and lucky to have Professor Gituro Wainaina to discuss with us issues of leadership and governance. Speaking a little bit about Professor Gituro Wainaina is currently the Council Chair, Kenya School of Government, that's KSG, and he is a professor at the Department of Management Science at the University of Nairobi. Formerly, he has served as a director, social and political pillar under the Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat, and also has served in many boards, including Capital Markets Authority. Karibu to studio, Professor.
Thank you, Nyaega.
Yeah.
Always to have you around. Yeah,
Thank you.
Great, yeah.
Thanks, Prof. Probably we'll just begin off from where you have the best experience in terms of running institutions.
Yes.
I am aware that you have graduated many students, all the way from undergraduate to PhDs.
Yes.
So the question is, when you talk about leadership, it's something that students can learn in schools and be able to practice at the industry level.
At the industry level.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And let me first perhaps express the joy of having been in academia because you create friends, and every semester you create friends, and when you have people you see, and I have people here in mind I really want to really happy people like Amos Kemunya, who is now a doctor. Well done, Amos, and the majority leader. You have people like Macharia Wainaina, now in Ministry of Transport. You have Adan Mohammed. You have Kenyans who have done extremely well. And when you see that with people like Mwangi of Equity, when you see that those are students, people who have gone through your hands, you feel proud and you know that. Now, the question you get perhaps is the experience is how you find them have shaped this country in terms of really the direction you have taken. And my happiness is to see through the interaction with them every semester, the student, and you're right, from undergraduate all the way to the PhD. I have a very interesting remembrance of Kemunya's class, 1986, that the first class I went was in Education Theatre 2. And here was Tiny Wainaina with his jeans. And those were the times of Gogi wa Thiong'o. And for the first 10 minutes, they thought one of them was actually the one playing with them. But eventually, 10 minutes, hey, this guy is serious. So they started taking notes. And I can tell you from there, you create friendship. You know, things we have done, even going to certain institutions as a board member, going to where you find somebody you know, and you have made them grow. That is something you cannot even put a value. But it's also the leadership skills and the issue of governance they have picked from you. You feel great, and you feel that to be associated with that. So it is, you're right, a lot of in the industry actually, or some of them perhaps on their own. There's a lady who get too much. She likes a lot in a WhatsApp. Itemesi, Richard. Very interesting group to have had all the way. People like Jackie Muka, all that stuff there. But I think in terms of what we are looking at, some of them you can see they have demonstrated really strong leadership. About the governance, that's a discussion for another day. But we can talk about leadership, and particularly when you have a lot of these people in government today, in key state corporations, key private sector.
So, Professor, I'm aware of you crafting very good strategies, and I was just trying to find out the nexus between the issue of crafting very nice strategy and actually delivering.
Yes, yeah. Right, you're right. I look back and happy for the Vision 2030. I was among the team which really crafted the Vision 2030, particularly the social pillar. And I remember people like Edward Sabiri, Kimemia, now the governor Nyandarua, and of course at the leadership of Francis Mudhaura and the president. And Mackenzie could do the economic pillar, but they could not work on the social pillar and the political pillar. So in his wisdom, Ambassador Muthaura chose Kenyans to do the social pillar and the political pillar. And therefore, I was chosen to be the team to do the social pillar. And remember going through it and coming with the various sectors and what we need to do, the theme, investing in our people. And we drafted that and kicks in 2010 in terms of implementation. So I've been involved in that. I was also involved in the issue of input to the SDGs now, because SDG has a lot of borrowed from the Vision 2030. And the very strong things which comes from SDG is delivering as one. That was extremely important. Very practical, beautiful. Other things like the policy papers, sessional paper number 2005 for education, social protection, all this environment. And it is interesting because also as I go back as 1995, come with very strong analytical work and analysis of encouraging. And what we found from the analysis, it was better to have day schools as opposed to boarding schools, secondary schools, because day schools in terms and boarding school in terms of exam performance, there was no difference, no significant difference, but the cost were very significant, and therefore you see that policy kicking in 2015, 2016. But it's something you did out there, so you get a bit concerned, you get a bit frustrated. That's the word. Sessional paper number 1 of 2005, education training, we talked about the dual way of CBC. Actually, you can see it coming down the road of over 10 years. So we have been drafted, but there's something perhaps we need to go forward. And I was listening to the president of South Africa recently in Senegal, Dakar, and he was talking about the vaccine and how the developing economy should give Africans the formula or intellectual right to produce. And I say, no, why can't we develop ours? We don't need that intellectual right. Our scientists are great. And my mind goes to the University of Nairobi Medical School, now faculty, very, very strong academia. What's wrong with banks like Equity or National or KCB? Really come in partners with them, says, we'll give you this funding, develop the vaccine, from the proceeds, we'll do all this. So you find a bit frustrating when you come with very nice policies, very nice papers, but the implementation, it's worrying. Actually, the word is worrying. The implementation is zero, perhaps to some extent. And I always advocated, we need probably to have a minister of implementation, really. Okay. Forget all these ministers, but this minister of implementation. And that's what Matiang'i, the response we got about 2 years or so was. But still, we are lagging in terms of implementation. Right now, I'm in the process of looking at MTP, medium-term review of MTP 3. And you get all these reasons because of COVID, because of the COVID, even things which doesn't require COVID. So we need to put more gear. We need to put more in terms of implementation. You have had it before. Certain economies have really borrowed of some of the papers we have, and they have gone ahead and implemented them. So there is, yes, involved in all these strategies, very clear, very nice. We look them back and like, oh, but you find that implementation becomes an issue.
If I may ask and just borrow from there.
Sure.
Why is it the problem?
The problem of a lack of implementation.
You've given examples of things you did 10 years earlier.
Yes.
Being done or being implemented 10 years later. Why could that be an issue?
Perhaps maybe starting from an easy point of view. One, you need very strong champions. People who believe in it. You know, it's not really an issue of I'm in charge of this ministry or I'm in charge of this. You believe in what you're doing. I think that's, to me, is one thing we don't have. Secondly, the whole thing of leadership. And I'll give an example. It was a joy, perhaps I'll put it that way, working under Kibaki regime, because you could see the intensity and believing in it. Once somebody said, when you do something, do it as you're doing to the glory of God. I give you an example. When I was in the Vision 2030, first as a director, then social and political pillar, and then as acting director general, Muthaura, the first time we used to chair the meetings. We used to meet every Friday of every month because it was urgent. The president was saying we must move, we must transform this country to a middle level. So Mudaura will come consistently without fail every Friday of every month, last Friday of every month, and chair the meeting. We used to meet then at Kenya School of Government. He would come, he'd chair the meeting. We would start at 9, we had at 5. They had to do board meeting, go there. Mungo so tells you no. But there were issues, it cut through government. What I liked about it is commitment, and B, all the PSs in the key areas were there. And therefore they debated. And lastly, C, what was important, he gave instructions then. And he said, the letter will be on your desk on Monday. And surely on Monday will be that letter. So the PSs actually started working on it. So that is something I saw follow through. And you see in terms of the first medium-term plan, we achieved a lot. One, we got the constitution going. We got the devolution going. And that commitment, believing something, is something I can really tell us to do. A leadership. The president was there, silent as he was, but performing, giving opportunity for you to do what you're good at. And I think there's something we need to, when I look at the two regimes, there's a difference in terms of follow through. Those who play golf, you know what I mean, follow through. And that's what we also need. And more importantly, perhaps the fourth item, very clear sanctions. Sanctions in the sense that if you don't do A, B, C, D, then this is the consequences. The performance contract was a very good avenue for follow through. However, it ran short of being what are the sanctions needed. Okay. So those are the things I really, because when you see the implementation issues, where now we have to use the resources. Drafting, coming that's cool. But when you now come to implementation, and there's something we have in this country, it's where you have to do a lot of procurement, a lot of this work. And there are lions, I don't know what, hyenas waiting there to pounce on this. And that's something we must be live to. So if you look in terms of regimes which have moved one steps ahead, they adopted a very strong no-nonsense leadership. And I'm moving all the way from South America, going to South Korea, going to Singapore. And then my mind comes very strongly to the issue of South Korea. If you go to many people's sitting rooms today, you either get a Samsung or LG. These are all from there. They replace the Sanyo and all that because of the leadership. You recall we had somebody came here, 21 gun salute. She's in jail now as we talk because of issues of misappropriation. Singapore, Lincoln knew. He said in 35 years, move this country forward. That took a lot of guts. I remember one the time the pilots and air sorter for Singapore Airlines, they wanted to go on strike. They said, yes, you can, but you will be repressed next minute. So certain stand we have to take. In Africa, we see countries which have moved that, and I'll mention about two. Botswana, very, very strong. That's a country with really, really diamonds. And how diamonds, as you remember, James 007, diamonds are forever. How they have managed that is fantastic. Rules are very clear. You mess up, punishment awaits you. Go to Liberia. Shambles, war because of diamonds. Then the country you look at, our neighbor, Rwanda. Certain things have taken, and there are cases where even relatives of the president have messed up. They're in jail as we talk. And I think those are the things we really need to take. Because although the money to get a bit concerned, frustrated, when you see all these things happen. So really, that's why I would say that there is a gap between the strategy and implementation. And in fact, at the end of the day, you better not have a strategy if you're not going to implement. That's the bottom line. Okay. Yeah.
So we go back to Vision 2030.
Sure.
You've been there, seen it grow, bringing very nice pillars.
Yeah.
And actually, we are talking about us being a middle-income economy.
Correct.
By 2030.
Yes.
In your assessment, you're about 9 years now, or 8.
Mm-hmm.
What is your assessment? And are there things we can reform or redo to ensure we get where we want to get by 2030?
I think I've alluded to it, and you're right that we have about 8 years now left, the same with the Sdgs. And one of the things we are saying is the decade of action, if you wish. And I think the strategy here, now to answer your question first, I think in terms of getting to middle income level, I think we are not there and we won't. You know, the figures, the facts are there. It's not Wainaina being pessimistic or being nasty. Then the numbers talk very well, you know. GDP, by the way, is not a good measure that we are really headed to where everybody is benefiting. You know, we did about 12% in the second quarter of this year, but that is, we are not there. There are better measures of how the country is growing. So we probably want to look at the numbers, what we are talking about. Not even that, you look at how we are. There are more people perhaps going to bed without food. And that's a fundamental thing to do. So what do we need to do? Let's look at the years remaining. And as a government, as a private sector, as Mwananchi, and I'm very deliberate in saying that because the government should learn from the notion that these projects belong to the government. You travel over this country, these are government projects. Fair enough, I don't think so. It is the Mwananchi who has paid taxes and telling you, please implement us on our behalf as government. So we have an obligation as government. We have an obligation as private sector. We have an obligation as the communities. And what is this we can touch in the next 8 years and permeate to all the other areas? For example, the Big Four was a very good initiative, particularly two. And in this order, A, agriculture and nutrition of food. One of the things we have probably been very well managed COVID is because of our food as Africans. And that's, so A, food. We must focus on food. Every Kenyan must feed. How do we do that? The areas, like now we know there's a lot of rain. You saw in Kitui, so unfortunate, the band which was prone by the river. How do we harvest that water? Small dams, water pumps, so that we have water 12 months in a day. And those areas are very rich, and the plants there, the crops you get, the mangoes you get are sweet. It's only water. And that's something we can do. So what have we done? We know about the dams in this country. And I'm sorry to really sad for my friend Ken Osinde. I hope he was, Wakoras are not the one who messed up, because there are issues he was talking about. He was very vocal on the issues of really being straight and very straightforward. So those are the things I really, and the water. So the second other aspect is manufacturing. A very strong area because of the effect, multiplicative effect it has. But notice all these things. I would probably take a back seat in terms of housing and health, because all these things, and there's a very fundamental linkage here, you have to see. Everything devolves all back to land. In fact, somebody made a joke, even when a plane is there, it eventually lands on land. So it's an area we can for the next step. How do we move our resources? Infrastructure. Because, and I think Macharia and the team has done a fantastic job. The private sector is doing a fantastic job. You see the road. Is to move the goods. But do we have the goods we are moving? That benefits every Kenyan. In terms of manufacturing, not everybody can be in manufacturing. But in agriculture, everybody. So in the 10 years remaining, 8 years remaining, I would focus on that. Okay. And that will, in my view, if a nation cannot feed its people, it should be really start questioning itself very seriously. It has failed somewhere. The worst, the downside is the consequences of not feeding your people. We know about the spring who started in Tunisia. And you know why it started? Young Sfera was saying he got himself in problems. So we need to find a way of really addressing that. So the vision, to summarize, there are 8 years remaining. There's somewhere we drop the ball. It's time to pick the ball. And I hope the incoming government in 2022 can pick some of this. They haven't given us their economic blueprint, talking about Urubaru, I don't know, talking about what. That's not an economic, a socio-economic, sustainable development plan. And they can leverage on the medium-term plan 4. How do we bring in and focus on a few things? And then what Jubilee did in the second term. We have all this vision, but we see 3 multipliers, 3 accelerators, 4. Agriculture, manufacturing, housing, and health. I would say let's look at two accelerators, agriculture and manufacturing. In terms of funding, I don't think that's an issue. Money follows good projects.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a number of things and some touch on leadership and governance.
Sure.
And I know that also there have been a lot of initiatives to try and improve these areas, because then once you touch on governance, leadership, you are able to probably have things implemented.
Correct.
So maybe you can mention whether these initiatives have been effective and, how can they be more effective at all?
I'll probably summarize the issue of implementation or leadership and governance and implementation and say the whole thing of good initiative being done is moving from the talk to the action. Let's walk the talk. I think it's important that I can come and tell you very nice things. And I take back to my teaching where I tell students that keeping time. But I'm not keeping time. When we had face-to-face meetings, I used to do something they never liked. I'll be there about 5 minutes or 10. And if you come and you have not told me, I walk away. So all the other students have take responsibility of you. So you practice what you say. If you come now with the online and you have not told me, and people have this, when you're online, but you're busy cooking or something. So every 5 minutes or so, I would actually call is Nyaega online. If you're not, I actually throw you out. So I think in terms of our readership we are talking about, I cannot be the one talking about we need to address the issues of implementation or issues of zero tolerance in terms of transaction costs. And I would say my buddies, my families, for example, are involved. That's something and we see and digest as Kenyans, or any other country for that matter. And therefore, it is important as the reader to be the forefront in terms of doing it. I still recall an initiative we started. I hope we could have continued with it. But my mind takes me to a country like Rwanda. Once a month, they get out and they clean up. And you can see the readership taking that leadership. And that's what it's all about. And we used to say in where I come from, my community, and I'll say it in Kikuyu, then I'll do the translation. Egudhua dogoria itikinyagira nyeki. What it means, if the leader limps, the others animals cannot reach nyazi, can't reach the grass. They won't eat. That's all about leadership. And notice there's something God did, and it's something we need to. Yesterday I had an interesting discussion, listen to BBC, that plants really talk to each other, and plants has a leader. Animals is a very best example. Animals have a leader, like elephants. Nakuma, remember? I'm the leader, the first one to take in front, and the others follow because it's taking them to the water, something good. It's taking them to, it won't take them astray. That's what leadership is all about. We respect leadership. Let me give you an example. We respect and believe in leadership. Let me give you an example. And however people see it is different. Magufuli John, and God rest his soul, very focused leader, very thoughtful, convinced Tanzanians there's no COVID. Nobody in the world would have imagined that a country is an island of peace in terms of COVID. Nobody would. Scientists would have flocked to TZ. I was there early this year, mid-January. I teach also at Dar es Salaam University. And my driver, everybody, tulifika kwa airport. The guy asked, Kwani, you fear dying? Because we had masks. Magufuli convinced in his leadership, there's no, and people believed him. So if you say the right direction, everybody will be behind you. Or indeed, if you wish, besides you. So I think in terms of what I saw the leadership, let's follow the elephants. Let's follow the animal. We have trust because we are taking us somewhere. It means good for us.
Right. Yeah. Let me bring you back now to
Sure.
probably linkages between academia and industry in your view. do we see a lot of talking? You implied like banks should go and fund as the University of Nairobi. Do we see a bit of connection between industry and academia?
Academia.
Yeah.
Very, very good, strong point you have there. There is, of course, a high linkages between some of the areas I teach, those perhaps have benefited from my class. I say there is high correlation, not spurious correlation, but you can causality here. I would perhaps talk about 0.95. That's a very high correlation between the industry and the university. But there's a third, which is the community. Yeah. So it's a tripartite. You're talking about there's industry there, there's a university there, and there's a community. Whatever we are doing here is of benefit of the community. Therefore, as a university, we should be seen relevant to the community as the industry. Here too, we have a responsibility. However, there's a gap here all the way. Now, that relationship is important. However, even if Equity, Mwangi, or the other people were to connect with the university, I must see value of that investment in the university. Because one of the good things is universities, they are really breast in knowledge. And we go digger, we deep digger, we read, and I can tell you I spend time reading. And that gives you a lot of perspective. And we have things which can make all the difference. Now, our biggest challenge we have is that we find that most of our readership very theoretical. I always wondered this, and I hope XN Iraqi probably will listen to this. Why can't it one day we'll get a vice chancellor of a university, public or private, who is reading not from the academia, but has the papers? Cambridge, even my Cambridge, and I thank the Kenyan lady with the roots here who got the first professorship there. That's great for her. Kudos. University of Cambridge hired somebody from New Zealand, somebody who has been in the corporate world, somebody who has a PhD, so he has a paper, and therefore he understands how to really manage and fundraise for the university. If you look at the University of Nairobi, since after Karanja, everybody who has been there has been in that university. Nobody has come from outside. It's, I don't know what you can, I think it's more than inbreeding, which in my view, in terms of even corporate governance, bring somebody from out. Let's get somebody from there. Who has the papers? Because academia, we are very difficult because we don't have a PhD, you can't talk to me. Get somebody there who has been in a corporate world and come back. One of the other things, and as my suggestion, I'll give my own experience. I've never taught 5 years continuously. I've taught and gone to the industry. I went to the World Bank. From there, I went to CARE. From there, I went to government. All these areas. Now, that brings you tremendous understanding the industry, understanding government and the academy. And it enriches the classroom. What we should do, and I think this is important, one, from the private sector or the industry, we need to play more role. We need to see how the curriculum let them come to the academic boards. Let's discuss how curriculum out there is. Academia. If I teach for 3 years, 4 years, the 4th year, I must get out of the university and put that mechanism into place. Wainaina, you've done your 4 years, go out. Go to the industry, we'll pay you 80%, come back. That will bring those linkages. Because the moment you understand that, the common research we do, the common ground, people like guest lecturers, people like Njenga Karume who passed on. If you're teaching entrepreneurship, Professor Ndemo, if you're teaching entrepreneurship, why don't you invite that guy? Come talk with the students. Those are the kind of things we really need to. The whole thing of internship is to the industry. In Germany, very clear, and we are trying to introduce that in KIST, where a student 3 days in a week, they're in the industry, who is when they're in the classroom. You get a really hands-on. And TVET, the student this year showed us something. I'm not interested in going to the university. You're very theoretical. So for us to move from the theory part, it's good to have the theory at the university, but it becomes better when introduced with the practical. And that practical you can only get in the industry. Right. So I think there's opportunity for, let's get together industry, come and tell us, instead of criticizing us, This is how your boards should, this is how your academia should, the curriculum should look like, as now we go to CBC. And also at the same time, we're also telling you, this is something you can also do together as partners. When I was talking about really the road, how does the expressway, the University of Nairobi becomes a partner on what is happening on that road? It might even cost you nothing. But I think this issue of getting management or university being professors, I have nothing wrong with professors, I'm one, but I think we need a touch of some experience out there. Yeah.
That be then the reason why also there's an accusation that some of the students we seem to churn out of the universities cannot sometimes perform in industry.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we have also fake documents.
Yeah, absolutely. Fake document is lack of integrity. That's bottom line.
Okay.
And also the teachers, the faculty. I should be a way to follow my students. So what I see is that you must give examples there which are practical. There's a course I learn and I teach and I love it. It's called Operations Management Seminar. It's a seminar. So we form circles, we work in groups. And once assignment we did, and one lady, Kerumbo, presented so well. I was so happy because he had the experience of that place. Jugunas. You know Jugunas?
Yes.
Jugunas is being asked to move to relocate because of the expressway, isn't it? So I was asking them to discuss. Let's discuss 3 strategies of where Jugunas should relocate. And they found it very practical. And it's very practical. It's a real thing. Those are the things I'm talking about. When I go to class and I talk about strategy in corporate, I talk about medium-term plan because I had an opportunity to do this. So there's a lot of benefits when you bring practical things to the classroom. When I talk about statistics, which most students think about, is a bit tough. I can give one example. I tell them, Margaret Kobia, CS for Public Service, Gender, Senior Citizen and Special Programs, was accused one time by the National Assembly. There are more Kikuus in public service. Now, as students, discuss this. But you see the practicality, that might not be true, but a politician will tell you that. Margaret Gashera, if you remember, Margaret Gashera was the first CEO for National AIDS Council. She used to earn 2 million then, 2005, and the next person 200. But when you dig deeper, you get his experience, you bring it to the class and say, no. Let's look at what we call weighted mean. How many Kikuus do we have? If you go to prison, are there more Kikuus than anybody else? And I'm not justifying anything because I'm that. So there are things now you try to look and bring the practice you have there to the classroom. The students are in sync with it. So when they get out, they have offers think about it. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking how, and this is something I really share with the private sector, NGO world, civil society. When you use data, let's try to use Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data because that's official. But if you have no experience than that, and you're doing that in classroom, you'll be looking data which is perhaps directed to a direction which is probably a donor wants or something to that effect. So I think it has helped me a lot, and I thank God for that, having worked in NGO world, development world, and in government. Another thing I would encourage, so that you bring the practical into the classroom. I remember when I came to do an MBA in Nairobi, I had to work for 2 years. That was the requirement. You must work for 2 years, come back. Those 2 years was that ensure that you're working for an institution. And then when you come in, I'm being now given theories and all that, how to do. So when I went back, I'm a better person. And that's a linkage which we should also bring into perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we conclude, what do you see as the future then of academia and industry in terms of reshaping?
Yeah. Very strong. I think we don't have what you call in certain degrees of freedom. We don't have the luxury, but the opportunities are high. I'll give examples. Where I was in my graduate school in the US, it was very clear for, they actually got grant universities. They're given grant by government, but they must demonstrate. If I've not brought anything to the university within 4 years, my tenure was at stake. So I might get here in the industry. So there's that, the academia, we must get out. We must also deliberately, you are going to work for 1 year. The industry must also, don't feel shy. Don't criticize on the fence. I'm talking about Vima Shah, the people in this town. Come in. This is, and most of them, some of them are in good positions. Like Mwangi Wiku was a chancellor. Use that opportunity to see how we influence the curriculum so that they reflect what's happening. The opportunities are there. Now, the bottom line is for us to believe and strongly do so. We are doing this for the citizen, for the Kenyan. The moment we see a Kenyan is going to bed, not hungry, it's because at Upper Kabete, we have come up with solution to sustainable food. So that to me is perhaps what we need to do. There's an opportunity, huge opportunity, if I may say, between the industry and the academy.
So, Professor, out of experience, I would like you to face the camera there.
Sure.
And share your closing remarks. Out of experience in boards, experience in industry, you can give us a few words.
Maybe, yes, to conclude, I'll probably share the experience I had over since my stint in terms of working for this country, particularly when the public institution, private sector, public sector. And one thing I've learned is, which has driven me very, very far, is the issue of believing and practicing Ubuntu. That is, you are who you are because of us. And above all, the concept of integrity. It can't be defined by any other thing. And I do recall those who are familiar with the owner of Warren Buffett. He says three things. He looks for most an energy, a student with a lot of energy, or employees with a lot of intelligence, and thirdly, with integrity. If you don't have the last one, it doesn't take you. That is something we need to. Integrity defines us. And let me make clear about integrity. In a scale of 0 to 10, where 10, you have full integrity, 0, there's no integrity, there is no between. You can't say my integrity is 5, you can't say 7. You're either 0 or 10. And that's how we need. That's what will make us move. That's what drive our economy as a country. So those are the things I would share that I've learned.
All right. So, Professor,
yes, please.
This is our last episode for season 1.
Yes.
And next week, go for Christmas. Do you want to share some goodwill message, Christmas message?
Yes. First and foremost is to wish everyone, every Kenyan, everybody in the world, a happy festive season. Our brothers also who are not in Christian, let's join our Christians. I'm talking about Muslims and others. Let's join our brothers and sisters as we celebrate the birth of Jesus. But two things I would really like to really give as a message. First and foremost, good people, COVID is still with us. We are not yet out of the woods. Extremely important, when we see the positivity rates hitting almost 30%, then by correlation or by extension, the mortality rate will also be high. So I would really like us, if we can, please, as we visit our loved ones, as we visit our friends, as we get into gatherings, wear masks. Wear masks. Let's avoid crowded areas, social distancing. Let's wash our hands, and let's stay in airy places. Let's follow the Ministry of Health. Let's follow the WHO protocols. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your neighbor, protect the Kenyan, protect everybody in the world. Secondly, my message to us as we go to the festive season, and as we get to 2022, we know it's an election year. Please be the vehicle of preaching peace. Peace. Yes, we had a stint in this country, very unfortunate when it comes to elections. But as you go home, you talk to your parents, you talk to your neighbors, let's be the ambassadors of saying peace, and that will prevail. Other than that, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Gituro Wainaina, currently the chair of the council at KSG and a professor at the University of Nairobi, talking to us about leadership and governance, the place of learning institution. That was a weekly governance voice brought to you courtesy of the Institute of Certified Secretaries, powered by Bafunde. I am your host, Obare Nyaega. Until season 2, see you. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.